Look at this. You're going to learn how to build this web experience today. It's a very cool 3D animated parallax landing page. And you're going to do it with a brand new tool called Dora. No, not Dora the Explorer, but rather Dora.run. This is a new web-based no-code editor for creating responsive 3D and parallax websites. It's currently in alpha, so there's definitely some features that are missing, but they'll be sure to integrate that soon. And you can join up by clicking the top link here in the YouTube description. And don't worry, for now it is free, so let's get started. If you enjoyed this video, check out DesignCourse.com where you can learn UI, UX, CSS, and more with my custom interactive platform that makes learning fun and easy. All right, so let's get started here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna click New Project after, of course, you create your account. You can click the top link here in the YouTube description to get access to that. And by the way, this is an affiliate arrangement, so I get $1 every time somebody joins. All right, full disclaimer. We're gonna make this about like an airplane game. So I'm gonna call this, name our project, we're gonna call this plane, create project. Ideally, that would just open up into the actual project after you do that. Some feedback to the Dora team. Okay, so if you've used any of these types of tools, these low-code to no-code tools, or even something like Figma, you'll notice that it's a pretty familiar sort of situation here in terms of the UI. I'm not going to start going over everything. We're just going to start creating, and then I'll go over everything as a matter of necessity. So the first thing you'll notice, you can't really select the actual artboard here. That's because it's by default, it just allows you, it just selects, these are your properties over here for the artboard itself. One thing that I wish they would have had is the ability to change the canvas background. You're kind of stuck with this gray color right here. Some more feedback. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna change this background color to like a dark blue. All right. Another thing that I'm sure that they will integrate in the future, I don't see it if it's already here, is the eyedropper, the color picker or whatever it's called. That would definitely be handy. But what we're gonna do is just kind of come down here, come over here in this range, somewhere right around there. And that way we have a nice dark blue. So the color code for that is 0C1D34 right there. Okay, after that, let's go ahead and get like a navbar sort of situation occurring here. For me, I'm just gonna take the type tool. We're gonna left click and I'm gonna type in plain game. You can't see it because it's black, so I'm going to type that in, hit escape, and change the fill to white. And then we're gonna change over here this font to Beboss New. And that's just a nice condensed sort of thick font. We're also going to increase the font size to around 24. And we're going to place it right around here. Now, when you just place it, it's just going to be placed wherever. You can kind of see these 4 little dots right here. Now, these dots allow you to kind of add, I guess you could say, constraints to it. And what we want to do is, for this, we want to keep this left aligned to this side of the browser, so to speak. So when we drag this connection over, like to here, you see it kind of just snaps when I put it over here. We let go, and we can see now it's pointing to the left. Now, if we come over here to the property inspector, we can see constraints. You can see it says 139. And you can see if we click into it, it allows you to change from pixels to viewport width, viewport height, or percentage values. So that's real handy. I want to make it based on viewport width so that it's responsive. When we drag in the browser, it will respond. It's not going to sit there at a fixed like 139 pixels. So we're going to change this value here to something like 12 VW. You can just hit VW right there, and it will automatically know. Okay, so just to show you, if you hit publish and you choose this on right here, and now it's published, and you click this link, it's going to open up a new tab, and this is the actual live website right here. So if I drag this in, you can see how plain game is now responsive. So the padding to the left here is responsive. Okay, so next up, we're gonna go ahead and create kind of like a very simple nav 3-item nav menu, horizontal menu sort of situation. So I'm gonna take our type tool. We're gonna left click. I'm gonna type in home. This time, just to create, just to make our type a little bit different, we aren't going to use the same type. You could if you wanted to, but for us, we're gonna change this to Poppins. which is a good font combo for the situation here. Oops, I have like a SpongeBob case going on there. There we go. And I'm going to change the font size of this one to, I think I'm just going to do like 17. All right, so we're going to move this over. Notice that we do have nice alignment tools like we're used to in an app like Figma. And we do want a hover state. You know, when you hover over these, it'd be nice to have a hover state. So to do that, what we can do is create a component. So we right click it, we choose create component. All right, now it takes us into this new editor mode. And you can see this little plus. Let's click that. And then let's double click into it to access the actual text layer right there for state 2. And we're going to give it a different fill color. We're going to come over here to around the orangish yellow, and we're just going to give it something like this color right here. That is F0E7D1. Okay. Now we go ahead and take this. You can see this little button right there. We're going to drag it over. And then over here, interaction details. Notice this is very similar to Figma, so it's familiar. We're going to change this to hover. And that's it. Now we just go back to instance. And if we were to go back here into refresh, we will see that it does not work. All right, so let's go ahead and figure out why that did not work. All right, so I'm going to go back to components over here. We can see our component. We can name this to like nav item or something. All right, so it says it's press. So for some reason, I must not have done that ready. I chose press instead of hover. That's why. So let's go back. We'll go ahead and refresh. There you go. So it's kind of hard to see, but you can see that's the size right there. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and, you know what? I think I'm going to make that just a little bit larger. I'm going to take both of these. We'll change this to 18. Change this one to 18. There we go. Just to let you know that you can easily make updates. So we have it slightly larger. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to take this component, hold Alt, drag over so we have a copy, hold Shift so that it's on the same horizontal path. And for this one, we're going to go ahead and change this to download. All right. This one, we'll go ahead and Alt. Yep, it's not working right now. Let me make sure I have this. Oh, that's why we need to select the component itself. Now notice we also will have the snapping where it says 59 in that pink area. So that's nice as well. We're going to double click that and we're going to say, I don't know, contact or something like that. Okay. At this point, we could take these three by holding Shift, all three components, and we can go ahead and hit Control G to group them. And then we can add that same sort of constraint except on the right side. So all we have to do is just drag this over here, change the constraint for this from 180 pixels to 12 VW for viewport width. Now we could also push this up here. All right, and we could just make that a fixed. Same thing up here. And there we go. Let's go ahead and refresh. Now notice how it's staying exactly where it should. Perfection. Awesome stuff. So now let's go ahead and get ourselves a big beefy headline. So what we'll take is, we'll just take this. We're going to say airplane. That's the name of our game. It's a very unique, original name. So first let's make this a monstrous size. I don't know, 90? No, we want to go larger than that. I think we'll go like 130. Okay, that's nice. Now we also under here under constraints we have the ability to align center and vertical center. Let's do the alignment center here, and I think that'd be pretty good. And again, after making changes, I like to just go back and make sure everything is working as intended. There we go. And notice you can't click play, by the way, and it kind of just shows you this preview, kind of like when you play a prototype on Figma, but you can't like quickly drag in the browser. You can choose device presets over here. For me personally, I just like to see what it's going to look like in the end result over here. Okay, so now here's the fun part. Here's the 3D part. Right up here, oopsie, sorry about that. Hit the wrong key. Right up here, we're going to hit 3D, and we're going to drag out Yeah, something like, the size really doesn't matter at this point. You just want to be able to see where it says import 3D model. One thing we do want to do over here under basic is under the width, we want to choose fill space. That will make sure it's good. The width will be 100%. In this case, the parent container is just the artboard or the layout itself, this whole page. You can nest things inside of each other and also make it fill the space of that container as well, which you'll see in a second. So now what we want to do is click import 3D model, but this is just going to open up for a file selection on your computer. We don't have a file yet. So where do you get 3D files? Well, if you don't make it yourself and you don't understand, how to make 3D, you can use something like sketchfab.com. There's a bunch of other ones as well. For me, I just typed in a search term of plain. I also chose downloadable. That's one thing that you want to choose. And also animated. For me, I want this to be animated 3D object. You can actually import that, which is really awesome. For me, I really like this one right here. And it's animated, and it has this nice kind of just gamerific sort of cartoon shader effect. Down here, it'll give you some important information like the triangles. 7.7K, it's fairly high. Some of them are like hundreds of thousands of triangles. Obviously, the more triangles and vertices, the higher the file size is going to be. So you just have to click download 3D model after creating a free account. And then you'll see down here, GLB, converted format. I was told that they do support GLTF and several others as well. But I think GLB works quite well. So just click download. It'll download that GLB file. After you have that file on your desktop or somewhere on your computer, we click import. And of course, I don't have the right folder open. So 1 second. There it is, right there, stylized World War I plane. Now, when this opens up, you're like, what in the heck? It just completely ruined my layout. Well, don't worry. If you click outside, you can see the tiny little plane right here in the center. All right, so when we double click into it, we get into the 3D edit mode where we can actually just move this around if we wish. I'm going to click it out and undo that. And we can also scale it up. We can zoom up with our mouse scroll wheel. And when we click out, there we go. That is the size of it. Now, what's really cool is if we double click into this and we come over here to the layers panel, if we click on this stylized option right here, which actually selects this plain 3D object. Over here in the property inspector, you'll see 3D animations, take 001. That's embedded this name here from whoever created this. But if we toggle this on, watch the magic. Look at that. It's automatically kind of just, working and animating right here in the preview. And in fact, if we go back over here to our page and we refresh, we're going to see it as well. So now it's a matter of getting this positioned correctly, getting it to the right size that we personally want. So if we double click into this and we select this actual plane right here, you can see over here we have some options right here. We can change the position XYZ, rotation XYZ, scale XYZ as well. So you can either choose to just zoom up here in your area if you want it larger on your mouse scroll wheel, or you could just take and scale up this plane model itself. All right, very cool stuff. So for me, what I'm gonna do is I actually wanna change the rotation. I'm not sure if I wanna do it on the Z. No, we don't wanna do it on that axis. Let's go back to 0, right up there. How about the Y? There we go. I kinda want it facing this way. All right, so that works pretty well. Now, if we take this overall container, we can kinda make it larger. Now at this point, maybe I'll scale it back just a bit. And we'll position it right around there. And then I think that's good right there. So it's kind of cool that it's overlapping the airplane. Now, of course, if you wanted the text to overlap, all you have to do is just take your container 1, for instance, and take your text 2 rather, and just put it on top, and now it's on top. So you can layer your elements to make a very cool effect. So now let's go ahead and create a second panel. I'm going to go ahead and just left click and drag this down. And before continuing on with this part, rather, we're going to select outside anywhere, and we're going to choose under scroll, we're going to choose vertical scrolling. Now that just enlarges the page, and it's going to allow us to scroll up and down. All right, now we want to take this container too and put it at the very bottom so that it's underneath the plane. All right, and we also want to make sure that the width here is not fixed because it won't be responsive. We want to do fill space. Now this color could actually work as is, but I want to use the gray color, so for the beige color rather, because there's some beige in this plane, and we have a hover state that's beige. So I'm just going to go ahead and come out around here. There, perfect. That is EBE4C5 if you want to follow along. Okay, so now if we refresh this, try to get an idea of what this will look like. So because we chose to fill the space, it's going all the way to the very right and left, and this actually looks pretty solid for what it is. So now we're going to have two text blips in here in a two column fashion inside of this container. So when we have this selected, we can just left click in maybe right around there, and we're going to say a fantastic experience. Now that's too large for my liking, and it's also bad contrast, so we want to make it black. And as far as size, I don't know, maybe we'll try 50. Maybe we'll go a little bit lower, 40. All right, so we're going to have a sub headline. So we have like a little bit of like a headline and then or a title, and then we're going to have a little description, like a little paragraph. We want to make sure that each one of these also adheres to the same white space that's been defined by our plain game logo over here, which was 12 viewport width from the left. Now, an easy way to do this, let's just move this over, is we can create a container right here. We're just going to eyeball its position. We're going to left click and just kind of push this over here. And on this section, we're going to choose 12 viewport width, just like the other one. Now we can get rid of the fill. We're going to take our text 3, put it inside of that new container. So that new container was called container 3. So we're just going to drag it on top. So now you have text 3 inside of there. And we want to put it in there inside of this element. So now what we can do is, it's kind of hard to see this, so for temporarily we can just give it a fill. There we go. What we want to do is we want to make sure with our text selected that we have our area right here to fill space, and that's going to fill the space of this element, this container rather. And you'll see why this is important in a second. Now for the width of this container that's going to house this title and description, we're going to give that instead of a fixed width, we're going to give it a width here. Instead of a pixels absolute fixed width, we're going to say something like 40%. Oops, that did not work. 40%. All right. So now you can see it's gone out. Now I think that's a little bit too much, so I'll probably bring it into around 30%. There we go. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and duplicate this. So Alt, left click, drag down. And another thing that's real important as well is that we create a constraint between these two type elements. This one, we're going to point right to this one. So that's going to make sure that even when we drag that browser in, and perhaps where it says in fantastic experience goes from one line perhaps to our experiences on a second line, it's going to push down naturally the text underneath it. Now, just to give ourselves some good typographic visual hierarchy, we are going to change this to Poppins. All right, so Poppins. Now it's way too large, so we're going to scale it down to perhaps 18. All right, that sounds good. And then now I'm going to go ahead and type in, or rather instead of typing, well, I'm going to have to type it, unfortunately. We're going to say rated as the #1 cartoon flight sim. You're sure to have fun with the whole family, or something like that. Okay. Now, when I drag this in, notice how it's responsive and it pushes it down. That's what you want. Now, of course, this might be a little bit too much of a constraint. So it's 32. Maybe we can just try 22 to reduce that white space. And then this is really ugly, so we're going to get rid of that. There we go. Now it's starting to look a lot better. Now we can even add another constraint up here to like the top of this container. All right, and we can see that it has a constraint value of 134 on the top, it would probably be worth adding that at the bottom as well. So come down here. This is going to be container 2. Now sometimes when you drag these connections, it's going to let you choose either viewport bottom, which we don't want, but rather container 2 bottom, which is the parent container right there. Now it would also make sense to move container 3 inside of this overall container here. I thought that was the case, but it's not. But now, there we go. There, perfect. So now if we select our container 3 right here, let's see here. I want to see how this responds when I drag the browser in. So if I refresh, we'll see how the overall container, yeah, notice this. It's not pushing down the height of this container here, which is a no-no. So we want to make sure that we have this set up, correctly. Now sometimes if you have a big 3D overlay here, you can go ahead and lock this. That way we can select the elements that we want to select. Now with this selected, what we can do is, because it's inside of that parent container, we can just choose Align Vertical Centers. And also to make sure this works properly, choose our container 3. Notice the height is not hugging. It says fixed over here. We're going to do hug contents. There we go. I think that's a lot better. Let's refresh this. All right, there we go. So now when we bring this in, it's working quite well. Okay, so next up, and by the way, I'm going to take this and make this a little bit larger. Instead of 25%, let's do like 31. We're going to go ahead and duplicate this. So I hold Alt, drag over. We're going to put this over here. This time we want to change this value. We click this little X icon, and we're going to add one over here. And this one's going to be 12 VW, viewport width. Okay, so let's go back and refresh. Now, I'm not going to bother making this truly responsive like on an actual mobile device. If you wanted to do that, because that's going to be a lot more work, you can go ahead and choose mobile breakpoint right here. You click this plus and it's going to bring up a brand new mobile viewport page under the pages section over here. That would be for a different tutorial. But so far we're making good progress. There's a final section beneath this that I want to add, and we're going to do that by taking a container. I didn't mean to do that. And we're going to left click and drag this. Now we're going to make sure it's, we're going to change this to fill space. I'm also going to just move it away and make sure it's connected to the container 2 bottom, and then change this 33 pixel value to 0 so it's touching it. We're also going to get the same color as the top container. So I'm copying that hex code and then pasting it. Then we can just make it a little bit darker. Like right around there. That color code, by the way, if you're following along, is CDC094. All right, so now if we go ahead and refresh, we'll see we have this container bottom right here as well. Okay, so now the fun stuff, the parallax stuff, like getting things to stick in Animate. This is real fun to play around with because it makes parallax sort of design easy. So what we're going to do is right up here you can see there is a keyframe panel. We're going to click that, and it's going to bring this keyframe panel up at the bottom. We're going to move this up so we have a little bit of space. And what's really cool is if we move this, you're going to see this viewport sort of window moving up and down. And if I zoom out a little bit more, you can probably see the whole thing. So you move it, it's showing like this square, and it's kind of showing you what you see. All right, and it starts here at 0, but it gives you the ability to go even negative as well, all the way to the top. And you kind of use this in conjunction by selecting your objects and animating them based on keyframes. So let's make this, this plane. As we scroll down, we're going to make it stay fixed pretty much, and we're going to make it grow in the middle. We're going to move the left and the right feature blips away as the plane is moving down, and then get it situated in the center right here. All right, so a lot of stuff happening. So let's go ahead now, and we're going to select the 3D object, so which means we have to unlock it. All right, and we're going to put a keyframe by clicking this Add Keyframe button right there. Now make sure it says 3D widget. We're also going to add a keyframe on the actual 3D object itself, and you'll see why in a bit. But now we have 2 keyframes. It should look like this. Now we're going to move this forward, and we're going to have it come all the way down here. And by the way, let's click back on our 3D frame. I'm going to click outside of it, click our 3D widget again. And when our viewport is down to like right there, to where the top of it is basically encompassing this whole little square, what we're going to do is hold shift and just drag this whole thing down. Now we can't see it. That's a pain in the butt. And that's simply because we need to take our container 5 and position it at the bottom. Okay, now we can actually see it. So if we drag this playhead up, there we go. Now for now, let's just go ahead and refresh, see what this looks like if we drag it down. There we go. Exactly pretty much what we want. Now let's also make it rotate. Now this is why we add a keyframe for the object itself. So when we go back, we're going to make this plane rotate by selecting this object right here, and we're going to adjust the rotate value on the y-axis right there. So notice when we move it up, it is changing the orientation or the rotation. So if I refresh, look at that. So fun. It's just so fun, I have to say. Another cool thing we do, we can come here in the middle where it's, because we're at 100 keyframes right here, so not 100 keyframes, but 100 frames rather. At 50 or so, we can make it grow or just do something really crazy or interesting. It is up to you with how you want to do this. So what we could do is take our object, and then we'll just grow it to like maybe like 1.25. I'll just copy that. And we'll do that for X, Y, and Z. And then now it's going to kind of grow up and then shrink down. All right, so we're going to refresh, see what this looks like in the browser. Grows up, shrinks back down. Oh yeah, love it. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're going to take this left and right column right here, and we want to move these out of the way, kind of like just pull them. Like that was my clever idea. You know, it's all about being creative and animating, making animation decisions that make sense. So because this plane is coming down, we're just going to move these out of the way and fade them out. So the way to do that is we're going to select, first we're going to lock this 3D widget. And then we're going to double click in here. And again, we have our keyframe panel up here. And it says container 3 is currently selected. Of course, if you weren't lazy like me, you would name your layers. And so we're going to put, let's see, right around here, I guess we could start moving them. So around 12. And I'm going to add a keyframe, container 3. Then as it comes down, we're just going to hide this. So we're going to make 2 changes. We're going to push it over holding shift, and then up here for opacity we'll choose 0. There. So watch this. Whoop. Now all you have to do is the same thing for the other container. So we come over here, we put a keyframe, we come over here and we push it over, and we'll choose 0, and look at that. Let's go ahead and see what this actually looks like in the browser. Refresh. Look at that. Can you believe it? There'd be a lot of manual code work if you were to do this in something like 3JS, for instance. All right, continuing on, our final section is going to be here at the bottom. And it's going to be pretty simple. We're going to have a headline, we're going to have a watermark, and we're going to have a button that says get the game. All right, so to get started with this, we're going to go ahead and let's do a big watermark. So I'm going to take our type tool. Notice when we have a type tool, we're currently on container 5. We left click, it's going to automatically put it in that container for us. That's handy. Oh, well, I didn't actually type anything, so it went away. There we go. Let's go ahead and type in download. Real big and large. We're going to make this thing huge. I don't know, like 300. Yeah, 300 works pretty well. And we're going to center it. We're going to put it right here. We can put this to the top. Let's see here. Okay. And we're going to make it a watermark, meaning we're going to take the opacity down quite a bit. So, like right around there, I think would be pretty good. That's 9% opacity. So again, I made a change. I want to check it out first. So we're going to bring this in. That's doing what we want. We're also going to have a little title that says start playing. All right. And we're going to stylize this text a little bit. So we'll center this as well. Drag this up to container 5 top. We're going to really extend it out. Let's try like 20%. I think that looks pretty good. Start playing. All right, and while selecting the start playing, what do we want it to do? Well, maybe right near the end, we'll have it kind of fade in right as the plane goes past it. Like right here, we'll put a keyframe. And then as we put that keyframe, we're going to put 0%. And maybe we'll move it up. Then we're going to come down to 100, put another keyframe. We're going to move it down to kind of roughly where it was and make this 100%. So now we move this. Actually, let's make it go the opposite direction. So with this selected, we'll make it come from the bottom. There we go. So now if we refresh, alrighty, look at that. Whoop. And then one final thing that we're going to add is like a big call to action button. So we'll take our container, left click. We're going to make this a black button. Rounded corners up at the top, maybe around 8. Okay. Inside of this container, let's just call this button. We can double click to change the name. We'll go ahead and we'll put in some text. Text will be get the game. Can't see it because it's black on black, so we're going to change this to white. And then with this element in here, notice it is inside of our button. We're going to choose to center it and vertically center it. There we go. So that way, if we change this, and by the way, let's make sure this is centered up. And we'll push it right around here. Hold Alt and change the scale a little bit. There we go. That's looking solid. Let's go ahead before we add animation to that one. We'll refresh it. Now let's make this one also come and animate in. So we click on this. Now, by the way, at this point in time, what I would typically do, right click, I would create a component for this button and then add like a hover state and maybe a click state too, or press state. But right now there is an issue. I spoke with the team that they're gonna fix, but currently I can't do it. If you make it a component and then you try to add this animation, the animation isn't added. It'll just like flicker at the end and change between the states. So typically, hopefully very shortly, within a week or two, they'll have that fixed, because typically a button should be a component, something that's a reusable element. So just understand that. So now that this is where we want it to be though, let's go ahead and add a keyframe at the end. And then we'll make this one come from the top, make the opacity 0. So now if we bring this together, there we go. So let's go ahead, refresh this. All right, my computer's being slow right now because I have a lot of things running, but check it out. Look at that. And for the most part, it is quite responsive to how we would want it to be. This works, a tablet version works and looks pretty good. Look at that. Awesome, awesome stuff.